Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program is brought to you by A.G. Heinz Company. Think about the past 100 years. A depression, 2 world wars, a great recession, now COVID, and yet A.G. Heinz Company has been the building materials supplier of choice for East Tennesseans through all of that. When you have a company that can withstand all of those body blows and people keep coming back to it, that tells you all you need to know about that company. For a century, they have had the supplies and the knowledge you need for your building project. Give them a call, drop by and see them, visit their website, A.G. Heinz Company. All right, want to welcome in the next member of our panel today. We have right down here, longtime sports writer, Mike Strange is back with us. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
All right, let me go ahead. I mentioned this in the last segment, but let me go ahead and show you a statement from the University of Tennessee that they put out regarding one of their basketball players. After testing several domestic members of our men's and women's basketball teams, and remember they have several internationals on the team, so that's why they're saying domestic members, one male student athlete tested positive for COVID-19. With the plan already in place, our sports medicine staff immediately activated isolation and contact tracing protocol in collaboration with the Knox County Health Department. We are encouraged by this affirmation that our procedures work. They did not reveal the name of the student athlete, and that is going to be standard operating procedure for these universities with the HIPAA rules. So all we know is that one player did test positive and has been isolated. Considering that no one on the football team has yet tested positive, and you only had one on the men's and women's basketball team, that has a very big plus, especially when you look around what was going on in the nation this week. In case you've missed it, 30-plus people have been isolated in the LSU football program, according to reports that came out yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. 23 people have been isolated due to positive COVID tests at Clemson and at Texas, 23 at each of those programs. Kansas State had players that tested positive to the point that they suspended all of their football team activities for the next couple of weeks. The NFL Players Association came out and advised their players yesterday, you may want to lay off the workouts where you're doing it together. Major League Baseball training camps, due to a string of positive reports, they have closed all of their camps for the time being. And Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the most experienced virus guy in our country, as you know by this point, he said Major League Baseball, if they want to do their season, and who knows if they'll get one in, but if they want to do it, they want to be finished by October 1st, which makes you wonder about football. And when asked about football, he said he doesn't see how they can do it unless the teams are put in a bubble, sort of like the NBA is trying to do. Gentlemen, we'll start with the UT situation in the men's basketball. We knew you would have some people test positive, only one so far. Any thoughts on the fact? I mean, there's really no other scoop to have. Jimmy, have you heard anything else to add to the statement they put out? They're going to be tight-lipped on this.
No, I haven't, and I think it's a good sign that Tennessee is in that situation. I think it's a good sign that the Tennessee players, the athletes, did a pretty good job of social distancing and doing what they needed to so that they wouldn't contract the virus. So I think that's a positive sign. A lot of those other signs are not.
Scary negative.
They are. And when you mentioned Clemson and Texas, and that was football only, those 23,
yes,
there were actually more athletes from those respective schools. So that's a scary proposition for me to look at that. Tennessee's doing great, but they're not the only one that has to do really well for there to be football this fall, in my opinion.
Mike, the irony is this same week that all this was going on, the NCAA went ahead and passed the proposal that allows everyone to come back and have a longer preseason. Preseason football starts in just a couple of weeks. You can get 6 extra weeks in there. It's kind of like moving spring practice to the summer. They went ahead and said basketball summer activities can start in mid-July. I have already seen it and heard it. There are a lot of people who are saying, yeah, these kids are testing positive, but they're fine. Nobody's dying from it. It's not a big deal. Okay. Lots of people get it. League shutting down. Schools shutting down. Other people saying, it's fine. NCAA says this. That's a lot of mixed messages. Where are you right now in terms of your gut feeling with where we're headed for sports this fall?
I'll qualify it by saying I'm no scientist,
right.
I'm no epidemiologist, but I have a really dim view right now that I can't imagine playing football in a stadium with a crowd. Maybe I can imagine playing football, but not with a crowd. I've been watching on some live horse racing on TV, some European soccer with no crowds, and I think if there's football, that's what it's going to look like. And And when the students come back to campus, things are just going to, I think numbers are going to go way up again. So,
And Jimmy, that's my fear is
Yeah.
I'm not as worried about the NFL. Smaller roster, it's a business. I'm not as worried about that as I am college football because it's a huge team, 100 people, and getting people back on. I don't see them having a football season if students aren't on campus. And my fear is you're going to wind up not having students on campus.
Well, that's a great point. And when we interviewed the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey a while back, he said, now what's it going to look like to have an active campus? So my thinking was, okay, he's opening the door to where if your class could seat 100, you're only going to have 20. So I thought, okay, that's kind of the parameter, just a guess onto what they're going to do to limit the number of students. But I still think you've got students coming not just from all over the state of Tennessee, but all over the South, all over the country. You've got foreign students. I think it's going to be very difficult. And if you don't have students on campus taking classes, you're not playing football. I'm kind of like Mike. I'm probably less optimistic about football now than I was. And another factor is we were hearing that when we got to warm weather, that could be kind of erase some of this. Like you don't have that, the flu season is typically resigned to the winter months. That's not the case. Two of the worst virus situations we have out there are in Florida and in Arizona, two warm weather states.
And
And now you've
Texas.
got the NBA looking at, that's where these leagues, Major League Baseball, the NBA, they were all looking at, well, can we go to Florida and Arizona? Well, now
Nope.
the NBA is having to look at, can we get out of Florida?
Yeah.
So,
Can we go to
and
New
all those
Zealand?
spring training sites.
Can we go to New York?
Yeah, all those spring training. And I saw today, and again, part of this is they have something new every day. And if that makes you not trust the scientists, that's the wrong way of looking at it. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's totally new. We've got hundreds of years of virus, of flu. We know about the flu. This is brand new. The more information comes in, the more they're having to adjust. I read something this morning that said in the South, where we're seeing this rise in numbers across the South, there are more 20 and 30-year-olds getting it than there had been elsewhere. Okay, that's a change. That puts athletes more in the target zone.
Yeah.
I'm still in the let's wait and see. I don't think you can cancel it right now. I think they jumped the gun a little bit too much by saying, we'll be fine. I'm somewhere in that middle. Let's see where we are in a couple of months. But I think it's cavalier of people to look at it and say, well, these players, they don't have massive symptoms. If anything, it'll just be one or two dead. I don't, young or not, I wouldn't want somebody in my family who was 20-year-old to get this. So I think some people look at it and just want their football and they don't care that, well, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And I keep seeing that on social media, and I got a real problem with it.
I'm more optimistic about college basketball just because it's just you're dealing with such a smaller number. It not only the players but staff and whatever it takes to make an event happen. So I'm more optimistic about that than I am football.
Well, and
agree.
with football, with the linemen, I mean, kind of hard to put them in a bubble, isn't it?
Well,
so
and also,
that's going to be a mess.
And they say one of the toughest places is the huddle. That's where everybody's together yelling, barking at one
No
another.
huddle.
The huddle is going to be the issue.
Gus Malzahn will be okay with that.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing you've got that's that people don't take into consideration when you're talking about all these players having it, well, the coaches aren't in their 20s. You got some coaches, and if it is age, and now again we're seeing some in the 20s and 30s, but if it's an age thing, a guy like Nick Saban who's 60 plus closing in on 70, okay, that's more serious for him than it would be a younger coach in theory. But the idea that, let the players get it, it's not a big deal. Well, who are the trainers? How old are they? Who are the coaches? What are their underlying illnesses? So it's not just players, it's all the support staff. And again, football support staff is massive compared to basketball.
And you hit it, the underlying illnesses they might have, the pre-existing conditions. We don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe a 66-year-old is in better shape than somebody else because he doesn't have any, but maybe he does. We don't know those things. That's what makes it so unpredictable.
Football, just the sheer size of it. I agree with Mike. I think that's what makes it so difficult. It's just massive teams, and just the point of somebody has to come in and pick up the practice jerseys, put them in a hamper, and roll them down to the washing machines. Who's that person? And do they want to do that right now? Don't know. All right. When we come back, I want to carry this conversation over, and we'll bring Ryan and David in and talk about there are some other scenarios. You always look at this thing. This tree has so many branches to it. there's some other scenarios that might play into this, even weather related, and not what we were talking about with Jimmy. Come on back, we'll explain.